I'm Derek. I'm 34, divorced, and a dad to the best thing that ever happened to me, my daughter, Lila. She's 7. 7 going on 70, really. She corrects me when I forget to floss, writes thank you notes in her own careful handwriting, and starts every morning by opening the curtains and whispering, "Another magical day." I used to think that was something she got from cartoons or picture books. But no, that's just her. She believes in magic, not wands or dragons, necessarily. Although she'll still dress like a unicorn astronaut for Halloween if the mood strikes, but in the kind of magic that shows up when people are kind or remember to bring a friend's favorite snack to school. That kind of thing. I share custody with my ex, Laura, but Lila's birthday fell on my weekend this year, and I wanted to make it perfect. Not perfect like balloon arches and rented ponies. She didn't ask for all that. She asked for 3 things: pink cupcakes with sprinkles, her best friends from school, and a microphone. "A real one, Daddy," she said, clutching her note cards, "so I can thank everyone properly, like at a grown-up party." We held it at a local community hall I rented for the afternoon. It wasn't fancy, but it had space, a little stage, and a sound system I tested twice. I decorated the walls with sparkly streamers and pictures of Lila's favorite books. She's on a fantasy kick lately, so there were dragons and fairy castles taped alongside her own drawings. Her friends came dressed in glittery dresses and superhero capes. There was laughter, games, a crown made out of pipe cleaners. She grinned so hard her cheeks stayed red the whole time. Now here's where the story starts to twist. My mom has a sister, Aunt Candace. She's one of those people who can make a compliment sound like a warning. Her voice is always pitched just high enough that you feel like you're being measured and found lacking. She's got 2 kids of her own, Braden and Skylar. Braden is 16 and carries himself like he's already the CEO of something. Which, fine, whatever, teenage swagger. But Candace? She's proud of him in the way a lion is proud of a fresh kill. Everything is a performance. Did you hear Braden's teacher nominated him for the Regional Science Bowl? Braden just finished a college-level coding project. Braden made the varsity tennis team, even though they usually don't take sophomores. I don't mind hearing about someone's success, especially when it's family. But Candace makes it feel like a scoreboard. I didn't want to invite her. Not because I don't believe in giving people a chance, but because every single time Candace shows up anywhere, something becomes about her or her kids. Every dinner, every get-together. And I didn't want Lila's day, her one day, to turn into a rerun of the Candace show. But my mom guilt-tripped me. "She's your aunt, Derek. Don't be petty. Besides, Lila loves Skylar." Which is true. Skylar is 11 and sweet and quiet, and actually very kind to Lila. So I said fine. Candace showed up late. About 20 minutes after we started the games, in heels that clicked across the hardwood and a top that shimmered like she was heading to a cocktail lounge, not a kid's birthday party. She brought a gift bag the size of a microwave and announced, "Sorry we're late. Braden had a thing. Very important. But we wouldn't miss our sweet little niece's big day." I smiled through my teeth. "Glad you could make it." She immediately launched into a conversation with my mom about some academic award Braden had been shortlisted for. I tried not to let it get to me. This wasn't about her. Lila was twirling in her sparkly shoes and chatting with her friends near the cupcake table. That's what mattered. Half an hour later, it was time for Lila's big moment. She'd asked for the microphone, remember? We practiced her speech together the night before. She even had little cue cards with phrases like, "Thank you for coming to my magical day," and "I feel like the happiest girl in the world." It was 2 minutes, tops. But to her, it was huge. I quieted the room. The kids all sat cross-legged in front of the stage. Parents leaned on walls or sipped juice boxes. I adjusted the mic, tapped it twice, and handed it to Lila. She looked up at me, beaming. I gave her a nod. "Go on, sweetheart." She stepped forward, clutching her cards in both hands. "Hi, everyone," she began, a little nervous. I wanted to say, Candace's voice cut across the room like a snapped violin string. Sorry," she said, laughing too loudly. "But I just got the text. Braden won the school award. The one for academic excellence. Out of everyone in his grade." There was a pause. Then applause. Actual applause. Candace beamed like she'd personally received the Nobel Prize. Braden gave a shrug and a small wave. Lila stood frozen. No one turned back to her. No one said, "Go ahead, sweetheart." No one clapped for her. She looked at me, then at the note cards in her hand. Then she sat down, quietly. right in front of her cake, untouched. Her crown tilted sideways. I didn't say anything. Not right away. My stomach knotted and I felt my jaw twitch, but I didn't want to make a scene. Not in front of her. Not with cameras around. I just knelt beside her and whispered, "Ready to go?" She didn't speak. She just nodded. I packed the cupcakes, every unopened gift, every favor bag, and walked her out while the music still played behind us. Candace didn't notice. Or if she did, she didn't care. I drove Lila straight to her favorite bookstore, the one with the big bean bags and the wall of graphic novels. I let her pick anything she wanted. She didn't say much, but when we got home, she hugged me tighter than she ever had. That night, I checked my phone. My cousin Skylar had posted a selfie, her smiling with one of the party favors Lila had hand-decorated, captioned, "Thanks for the invite." I commented once, "You're welcome," but it wasn't for you. Then I turned off my phone, and I started thinking, really thinking, not just about what happened, but how often things like that have happened. How many moments in our family have been handed over to someone louder, someone pushier, someone who thinks their child's accomplishments deserve center stage, always. And how maybe, just maybe, it was time to change the script. That was the day I decided to stop letting people hijack my daughter's magic. But you can't just confront someone like Candace with words. Words don't work on people like her. You need a plan. The next time I saw Candace was 3 weeks later at my mom's house. It was supposed to be a low-key Sunday dinner. Just family, no occasion. But even then, I had a knot in my stomach. I knew better. In my family, just dinner usually meant someone had news they wanted to broadcast, and 9 times out of 10, that someone was Candace. Lila didn't want to go. She was curled up on the couch with her new book, one of the ones we got at the bookstore after her birthday, something about a talking cat and a time-traveling teacup. And when I told her it was time to get dressed, she didn't argue, but her shoulders dropped a little. "Will Brayden be there?" "I don't know." I lied. "I knew." She paused, then asked, "Do you think maybe this time I can say something too?" My chest tightened. "You can always say something, baby. I'll make sure of it." But that wasn't the problem, and we both knew it. It's not that Lila didn't have words. It's that in this family, people like Candace made sure no one else's voice stayed in the air for long. We got to my mom's around 4. Brayden was already there, parked on the living room couch like he owned it, one AirPod in, scrolling through his phone while Candace and my mom chatted in the kitchen. Skylar waved at Lila, and the two of them disappeared upstairs to do whatever it is little girls do when they're not being watched. Draw, make up stories, talk about which teachers smell like peppermints. Dinner started off civil enough. Roast chicken, potatoes, green beans, store-bought rolls. The usual. We all sat at the long oak table my dad built before he passed. A piece of furniture that had survived birthdays, Thanksgivings, even one Christmas where Brayden threw mashed potatoes at Skylar and blamed the dog. Back then, he'd at least pretend to be a kid. Now he was taller than me and didn't bother pretending anything. Candace poured herself a glass of red wine and began the monologue. "Brayden just got his SAT scores back," she said, unprompted. 1420. Can you believe it? I told him he's practically Ivy League already. And his counselor says he's a shoo-in for early admission next fall. I mean, it's rare to see that kind of drive in a boy his age. Most of them are off vaping or playing video games, but not my Bray. Brayden didn't look up, didn't even blink. Just muttered. It was a 1410. Candace blinked. Really? Oh, well, I must have misread it. Still amazing. She turned to my mom. Didn't Derek barely break 1,000 back in the day? My 4 paused midair. My mom gave a light laugh. Well, that was before they changed the scoring. Right, Candace said, then looked at me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. No offense, of course. Some people just aren't test takers. I looked down at Lila, who was picking at her green beans. She didn't meet my eyes, but I could see her shoulders tensing. She was used to this kind of atmosphere now, adults puffing themselves up, laughter with thorns in it. She didn't fully understand it, but she could feel it. That night ended without fireworks, but the air felt heavier when we left. Like something invisible had been placed on my back, and I couldn't quite shake it off. Then came the school fundraiser. It was something the PTA put together every spring: games, booths, bake sales. The kind of thing where kids run wild and parents pretend not to compare each other's baked goods. Lila was helping with her class's wishing tree booth, where kids could write hopes on paper stars and tie them to branches. Her handwriting was all over the examples. I wish my dog could talk. I hope I never move away from my best friend. I wish every day felt like a birthday. I signed up to volunteer for cleanup duty, but I arrived early to help set up too. That's when I saw the banner, in massive block letters, stretched across the center walkway of the schoolyard. Congratulations, Braden, Student of the Year, with a full-color printout of his yearbook photo plastered underneath. I blinked. Wow, I muttered to no one. Subtle. Turns out Candace had sponsored the entire event. Not just helped, not just donated. Sponsored. As in, Candace and Company. Real Estate Proudly Presents was written in elegant font on every flyer, every sign, even the napkins. That's how she works. If she can't control the spotlight, she buys it. Lila saw the banner, too. She didn't say anything, but later I noticed her adding a paper star to the wishing tree that simply said, "I wish I was the one who got clapped for." That one stayed with me. But the real breaking point came not long after, on a Sunday that started like any other and ended with my hands shaking. It was Lila's school art showcase. Every kid got to display their favorite creation from the semester. Lila had painted this huge, messy canvas of a girl standing under a starry sky, arms wide, with little animals gathered around her like she was telling a story. The teacher told me it had been picked to hang in the front hallway for the rest of the month. We were both so proud. I invited my mom. I even, stupidly, told her to bring Candace if she wanted. Let them see what real magic looks like, I'd said. They showed up right as the program was starting. Candace, wearing sunglasses indoors like she was avoiding paparazzi, and Braden, tapping something on his phone. The teacher gave a small speech about creativity, then invited the kids to walk their parents through the displays. Lila took my hand and guided me straight to her painting, grinning ear to ear. Then we heard Candace behind us. "Oh, this is sweet," she said, peering at the painting. "Very expressive." Lila looked up, hopeful. "Do you like it?" Candace smiled, tight, polite, condescending. "It's very colorful, honey. My Braden did something similar in second grade." "Do you remember that, Bray?" she asked. "The one with the wolves?" He shrugged. "Kinda. It won second place at the district level," she added louder. "But this is very sweet, too." I felt Lila's grip on my hand loosen. She looked down at her shoes. And that's when it happened. Candace turned to my mom and said, loud enough for nearby parents to hear, "You know, I just think it's a little sad. I mean, Braden has so many accomplishments, and Derek's little one here just paints. But I guess every family has their artists and their achievers, right?" I didn't respond. Not at first. But I felt something crack. Something long overdue. We left the event early. I didn't make a scene. I didn't yell. But in the parking lot, Lila climbed into the back seat and buckled herself in without a word. I started the car, stared at the dashboard, then turned it off. "Sweetheart," I said quietly, "you did nothing wrong. That painting is beautiful. I am so proud of you." She nodded. "I know." But her voice was soft. Too soft. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the hallway. I opened the notes app on my phone and started writing things down. Dates, quotes, details. Not because I needed to prove anything. Because I needed a plan. See, up until then, I'd been telling myself that ignoring people like Candace was the high road. That walking away was the noble thing. But noble doesn't protect your kid from being dimmed. Noble doesn't erase the image of a little girl sitting silently with her note cards while grown adults clapped for someone else. I thought back to all the small things Candace had done over the years. Like the time she told me not to bother enrolling Lila in music lessons because some kids just aren't rhythmic. Or when she accidentally posted a photo of Lila crying during a family picnic with the caption, "Too much sugar." Or how every time Braden got an award, Candace sent out an email blast to the entire family, including photos, stats, and a paragraph about how success requires sacrifices. Some parents just don't push their kids hard enough. That last one hit different now. Push. My daughter didn't need to be pushed. She needed to be heard. She needed to be seen. She needed to know that her worth didn't depend on outshining anyone else. That magic doesn't always come with medals or banners. Sometimes it comes with pink cupcakes or handwritten thank you notes, or a quiet, star-filled painting done by a 7-year-old who just wanted to be clapped for once. So I made a promise to myself that night. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't beg. But I was done staying silent. I was done letting Candace talk over my daughter's voice. And I had just the idea of how to make that clear, without ever raising mine. But first, I had to make a call. To someone Candace had no idea I even knew. And when they picked up and I explained who I was, there was a pause. Then a slow laugh. Yeah, the voice said. I know Candace. What did she do now? I smiled. Oh, I said. You'll want to sit down for this. The person I called was Nate Simmons. I hadn't spoken to him in almost 8 years. Nate and I went to high school together, back when I still believed success meant keeping your head down and letting people talk over you. He was always the guy who raised his hand too much in class, but instead of being annoying, he made you want to listen. After college, we lost touch. He went off to start some marketing consultancy that exploded faster than anyone expected, and I went into freelance design work, juggling clients and deadlines and sippy cups. But what made me call him wasn't his success. It was something else. Candace used to work for him. Not for long. A few years ago, she got hired to manage PR for one of his clients, a mid-sized tech company in New Jersey. I only knew this because she wouldn't shut up about it at the time. The clients love me. They say I have a polished presence. That gig lasted for months. Then she stopped mentioning it. When Nate answered the phone, I introduced myself, expecting to get voicemail or maybe a polite brush-off. Instead, he immediately said, Derek? Like, Candace's nephew Derek. And that was all it took. One name, and the floodgates opened. Apparently, Candace had made quite the impression back then. She threw her weight around like she owned the place, tried to redirect budget decisions without permission, and when she was asked to tone down a campaign that received some internal backlash, she called the entire HR department emotionally fragile. She didn't get fired, technically. She resigned, but not before blacklisting herself from 2 of the client's future accounts. Why are you calling about her? Nate asked. I hesitated, then said, I think it's time someone else got the mic for once. He was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. Okay, I'm intrigued. We didn't plot revenge on that call. I didn't even tell him the full story, just the general arc. But I got what I needed, an in. And more importantly, a reminder that Candace wasn't untouchable. She had cracks in the armor, and those cracks mattered. Still, revenge wasn't the first thing on my mind. Not really. What mattered more, in that moment, was rebuilding what Candace had chipped away at, Lila's joy. Her confidence. Her belief that she could speak and be heard. So I started small. I created a little website just for her artwork. Nothing fancy, just a domain with her name and a soft pastel layout, with digital photos of her paintings and stories she'd written at school. At first it was just for us, a private space where I could say, look how much your voice matters. But then I started sharing it, with her permission. I posted a few links on a local parents' Facebook group, under the title, My Daughter's Magical Gallery. She'd love some kind words. Within 2 days, strangers were commenting with things like, I wish I saw the world like this, and that cat looks like it could solve mysteries. One woman messaged me privately and asked if she could buy a print. I didn't even know how to do prints. I looked it up. I took Lila to the print shop myself, showed her how the machines worked, how the colors translated from canvas to paper. She picked out the packaging, white envelopes with tiny glitter stars, and wrote, thank you, notes in each one with a rainbow pen. By the end of the month, she had 10 sales. Not much, but enough. Enough to start asking questions again, to speak up more in class, to stop glancing at the floor every time someone raised their voice around her. And I was changing too. After years of freelancing under other people's umbrellas, I finally did the thing I'd been avoiding. I launched my own studio. Just me and a clean brand name, Quiet Magic Designs. The tagline? Where the smallest voices shine the brightest. I built it around projects I actually cared about, book covers, children's illustrations, educational nonprofits. And word got around faster than I expected. Within 3 months, I had more work than I could handle alone. I hired a part-time assistant, then a full-time one. Then something wild happened. Lila got featured in a local paper. The same woman who'd bought her first print ran a blog about art education. She reached out and asked to interview her and me. I almost said no, but Lila wanted to do it. Only if I get to talk about the wishing tree, she said. That was my favorite. The interview came out a week later with the headline, 7-year-old turns birthday heartbreak into magical art project. There was a picture of her holding her painting and another of us sitting together at the print shop. I sent a copy to my mom. I didn't send one to Candace, but she saw it. She commented on the article's Facebook share with 3 words, so very sweet. I didn't reply. A few days later, I got a text from my mom. Candace said you're turning Lila into a sympathy project. Maybe ease off the interviews. I didn't reply to that either. Instead, I kept building. Lila's website got a new section, Lila's Stories. Every week, she wrote a little story about an animal who felt invisible. There was Benny the boring bee, who found out his buzz was actually a perfect musical note. Mia the mouse, who helped a dragon find his lost laugh. Jasper the jellyfish, who made underwater fireworks no one noticed, until one day, they did. Each story ended the same way, and for the first time, they felt seen. She didn't write those for Candace. She didn't even write them about her. But I saw the lines. I saw what was healing in her, one page at a time. Then, out of nowhere, Candace invited us to dinner. A formal dinner. At a restaurant I'd never heard of, something like La Mer Violette, the kind of place where they serve food in vertical stacks and don't put prices on the menu. She texted, "Brayden wants to celebrate his scholarship offers with family. We'd love for you and Lila to join." Or something nice. I stared at the screen for a long time. It wasn't about the invitation. It was the smiley face. That smiley face said, "Be on your best behavior. Remember your place." I almost declined. But then I realized something. She was still playing the same game. But I wasn't. And neither was Lila. So I said yes. The night of the dinner, I dressed Lila in the sparkly silver dress she'd picked out for her art show. She looked like a moonbeam. I wore a blazer for the first time in a year. We arrived exactly on time. Candace greeted us with a glass of champagne already in her hand. "Derek," she beamed, kissing the air next to my cheek. "And Lila, oh, you look adorable. Just like a little star." Lila nodded, polite but distant. Skylar waved from the table. Brayden was seated at the head, surrounded by brochures from colleges I knew Candace had personally requested from the admissions offices. She'd probably stuffed the envelopes with recommendation letters she wrote herself. Dinner was predictably awkward. The food was delicious but impossible to pronounce. The conversation was a loop of SAT scores, scholarship offers, and thinly veiled comparisons. Brayden's essays are just so mature. He even used symbolism. Isn't that amazing for his age? Halfway through the main course, Candace turned to Lila and smiled. "So, sweetie, are you still painting? That little website was very cute. You should be careful, though. People might think you're pushing too hard. Letting kids be kids, you know?" Lila looked at her, calm. Then she said, "I don't need to push. Magic doesn't like being shoved around." Candace blinked. I smiled. She's got a point. There was a silence at the table. Not long. Just long enough for the temperature to shift. That night, Lila didn't eat much. She was polite, said thank you, hugged Skylar goodbye. But when we got in the car, she was quiet again. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded. "I'm tired of pretending." "Pretending what?" "That I like being around people who don't see me." I turned in my seat to look at her. Her little fists were curled in her lap, her sparkly dress bunched under the seatbelt. "You don't have to anymore," I said. And that's when the final piece of the plan fell into place. Because while Candace was busy curating Brayden's narrative for college admissions officers, I'd been quietly working with someone else. Someone she didn't know had a direct line to the selection committee for a regional youth initiative scholarship. The same scholarship Brayden had applied for. The same one Candace had bragged about during dinner. The committee reviews weren't public. But my contact had seen Candace's name on the application 3 times. Each time, she'd submitted a different version of Brayden's personal statement. One was handwritten and awkwardly sincere. One was polished and cold. One was clearly ghostwritten by someone trying to sound 17. They flagged it. And suddenly, Brayden wasn't the safe bet anymore. But that wasn't even the biggest piece of what I'd planned. That was still coming. And Candace never saw it coming. Not even when the invitations went out. Not even when her inbox filled with responses. Not even when she RSVP'd, without even reading the fine print. But I did. And I had something waiting for her. Because my daughter was finally going to speak. I didn't know how sweet planning revenge could taste until I saw Candace's name on the RSVP list. She'd clicked attending within 10 minutes of getting the email, probably without even opening the attachment. She was like that. So used to being in the spotlight that she assumed any stage must be built for her. The email invite had gone out through the local art center's mailing list and was addressed to family, friends, teachers, and community supporters. The subject line was simple: "Come celebrate the magic, one night only." A gallery show by Lila Everly. I watched her little green checkmark appear on the tracking dashboard I set up. She probably read gallery and assumed it meant an amateur showcase in some dusty church basement. She didn't know what I'd built or who I'd brought in, but she would. See, the gallery show wasn't just a cute idea anymore. It was the product of 6 weeks of strategic planning, careful conversations, and more behind-the-scenes favors than I ever thought I could pull off. Every contact I had, every client who owed me one, every friend of a friend who believed in what I was doing, I called in everyone. I didn't beg. I just told them the truth. I told them about Lila, about what had been taken from her, about why this mattered. And people responded. It started with a client of mine, Marissa, who worked as a director for the town's arts center. I designed a logo for one of her children's theater projects the year before. When I called and told her about the idea, she didn't even hesitate. Use the main space, she said. We'll comp the rental. Then it spread. One of Lila's old kindergarten teachers offered to help hang the paintings. A family friend who owned a bakery said she'd donate trays of cookies and cupcakes. A local author who'd been quietly following Lila's story online emailed me. I'd love to donate some signed copies for a raffle. She reminds me of who I was before the world told me to grow up. Every day, something new fell into place. The theme was simple: quiet magic. The centerpiece would be Lila's original painting, the one that got her noticed, the girl under the stars surrounded by animals. Around it, I arranged her newer work, each piece accompanied by a short story she'd written. We printed the stories on soft, cream cardstock, mounted beside the art like museum plaques. There were jellyfish and foxes and girls with crowns made of light. There were dragons who read bedtime stories and forests where trees whispered secrets in watercolor. We even had a wishing tree in the lobby, just like the one from the school fundraiser. Only this time, Lila would be the one collecting wishes, not watching from the sidelines while someone else took the mic. And yes, there would be a mic. A real one, set dead center in the main room, with a spotlight and a wooden stool just her size. Lila didn't know all the details. I kept most of it quiet so she wouldn't feel pressure. But every day, she got more confident. She wrote new stories, helped paint signs, even practiced her speech. This time without note cards. This time, she wanted to speak from the heart. And still, even as the pieces came together, I waited for the right moment to make it count. Because this wasn't just about Lila anymore. It was about reclaiming the space Candace had stolen. Every dinner, every event, every moment where someone else deserved a little light, and she redirected it. I wasn't going to confront her in anger. I wasn't going to yell, or argue, or accuse. I was going to invite her to witness something she couldn't hijack, something she couldn't spin. And just in case she tried, I had backup. A few days before the event, I reached back out to Nate. You remember that scholarship Candace tried to stuff Braden into? I asked. He did. They flagged his application, he said. The essays didn't match. They're reviewing it again, but the damage is done. Good, I said. But I need one more thing. Name it. There's a board member coming to the gallery. Lila doesn't know. Candace definitely doesn't. But she will, by the end of the night. He didn't even ask why. He just said, done. You ever feel like you're watching a chessboard from above, and you suddenly realize you've got the winning move, and the other player doesn't even know they're in check? That was me. And as the night drew closer, I played it cool. I took Lila out for ice cream the night before, just us, and asked if she felt nervous. A little, she said, but mostly happy. I nodded. That's the best kind of nervous. Then she looked up and added, do you think Aunt Candace will clap this time? The question punched me in the gut. I think, I said slowly. This time, everyone's going to listen. The gallery opened on a Friday evening in late spring. Sunlight spilled through the wide front windows, lighting up every brushstroke like gold. The scent of cupcakes and fresh print paper filled the air. Kids buzzed around the wishing tree, scribbling on stars and tying them up with ribbon. Parents sipped sparkling cider. Teachers mingled with neighbors. The air was electric, alive. And Lila, my daughter, stood in the center of it all like she belonged there. Because she did. I spotted my mom near the back, eyes misty, hands clasped like she was holding something precious. Skylar was there too, wearing a little headband with stars on it, walking through the paintings like she was in a dream. And then, Candace walked in. Late, of course, in heels too tall and a blazer too crisp, flanked by Braden, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. She stopped in the doorway and blinked. Took it all in. The crowd. The lights. The art. The name on the banner. The quiet magic of Lila Everly. She didn't smile. Not this time. She scanned the room like she was looking for the center of gravity and couldn't find it. Then she spotted me. Derek, she said, walking over. This is impressive. Very polished. You've outdone yourself. I nodded. It's not for me. Of course. Her smile was tight. But let's be honest. This is a bit much, isn't it? I mean, an entire gallery show? She's 7. Exactly, I said. Candace opened her mouth to say something else, but then a woman approached. Short silver hair, smart pantsuit, clipboard in hand. She introduced herself with a warm handshake. Hi, I'm Marion. I serve on the Youth Arts Board. You must be the proud father. I smiled. I am. Marion turned to Candace. And you're? Oh, she said, blinking. I'm the aunt. Marion nodded, then looked back at me. She's incredible. I read every plaque. You don't see this kind of heart often. We're actually scouting for a new scholarship program. First cohort. Would love to talk more. Candace's eyebrows twitched. Oh, she said too brightly. A scholarship? For elementary students. For storytellers, Marion said, not missing a beat. We're building something new. I watched Candace process that. Her mouth tightened. Braden shifted beside her, clearly bored, fiddling with his phone. Then the lights dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd. The small mic on the center stool glowed under the spotlight. I stepped to the front and tapped it once. Thank you all for coming, I said. Tonight isn't just about art. It's about voice. About magic. The kind that shows up quietly and waits for us to notice. My daughter has something to say, and this time, nothing will interrupt her. Then I stepped aside. Lila walked out. No note cards. No script. Just her silver dress, her glowing eyes, and her voice. She sat on the stool, looked out at the crowd, and smiled. Hi, she said. I'm Lila. I used to think magic was something you had to earn. Like if you were smart enough or loud enough or big enough, then people would listen. But I learned something better. She paused. Magic is in the noticing. It's in seeing people who aren't always seen. It's in not clapping for the loudest voice, but the kindest one. The room was silent. Even Candace. Even Braden. And I wanted to thank you all for coming to my magical day. She finished, her voice clear. The room erupted in applause. Not polite. Not scattered. And right in the middle of it, Candace stood frozen. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the one being clapped for. And she didn't know what to do with that. I did. I turned to Marion, gave a small nod, and said, let's talk next week. I think Lila's ready. Then I looked at Candace and smiled. The moment the applause settled in that gallery, I saw it. Candace was unraveling. Not in a dramatic, tear-smudged mascara kind of way. No, that would have been too human, too honest. Candace unraveled with a smile that twitched a little too long, with hands that clutched her wine glass just a hair too tight, with a jaw clenched behind a facade of grace. It was like watching a glacier crack beneath the surface, silent, subtle, but unstoppable. She didn't storm out. She didn't make a scene. Candace did what Candace always did when the spotlight slipped out of reach. She schemed. I saw her pull Braden aside near the refreshments. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught snippets: scholarship, damage control. It's still your story. Braden, to his credit, looked embarrassed. He kept shifting his weight, glancing at Lila's painting, then back at the exit. He didn't want to be there anymore. But Candace wasn't done. Not yet. 2 days after the gallery, she sent out a mass email to our extended family. The subject line was, "Let's celebrate all our children." It read like a manifesto written in cursive font. While we all love creativity, let's remember that academic excellence deserves just as much recognition. Braden has worked tirelessly, and I hope our family continues to prioritize real achievement over popularity stunts. No one replied. Not even my mother. I didn't respond either. I didn't have to. The real response came a week later. That was when the scholarship board released their finalists. 3 names. One of them was Lila Everly, for a special pilot program called Emerging Voices. The youngest finalist ever included. Braden's name wasn't on the list. And Candace lost it. She called my mom in a fury, claiming Lila's gallery had undermined the integrity of the family, that I was manipulating people with sentiment, and that the scholarship board was clearly biased against boys. My mom, saint that she is, said nothing. Then she hung up. But it didn't stop there. Candace emailed the board directly. That was her mistake. She wrote a 2-page tirade questioning their selection process, accusing them of favoritism. And here's the kicker. She attached what she claimed was proof of Lila's work being plagiarized. Paintings, she said, that looked suspiciously professional for a child. She accused a 7-year-old of fraud. That email made its way to Marion, the board member I'd introduced to Lila that night. Marion forwarded it to me with a simple note. I thought you should see this. It included the header Candace hadn't meant to leave on the attachment. Photos pulled from Pinterest. Adjust saturation. She'd fabricated the evidence. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not angry, just stunned by the audacity. I could have let it slide. I could have forwarded it to the board and washed my hands of the mess. But I didn't, because Candace needed to learn something she'd never been taught. You don't get to rewrite other people's stories. So I made one more call. This time, not to Nate, but to a friend named Emily who worked in community reporting for the local paper. She'd interviewed Lila once already. She believed in the story, and more importantly, she believed in truth. I sent her the email, the fake attachments, the timeline. She verified it all. Then she called Candace for a comment. Candace, of course, denied everything. The article dropped the following week. When competition turns toxic, the dark side of parental overachievement. The headline didn't name her, but everyone knew. The quotes were real. The evidence, redacted but unmistakable. It laid bare the lengths to which some parents go to control a narrative that was never theirs to begin with. It wasn't viral. It didn't make national news. But it was everywhere in our town. Candace tried to pretend it wasn't about her. But the fallout was immediate. Braden's remaining scholarship applications came under scrutiny. One was withdrawn pending an investigation into essay inconsistencies. The College Board, having been CC'd in Candace's original email chain, issued a formal warning for parental interference in the admissions process. Braden stopped showing up to family events. I don't blame him. He was a kid caught in someone else's hunger. But Candace? She doubled down. For a while, she called me once. Just once. Her voice was low, flat, quiet. I hope you're happy, she said. You humiliated us. I didn't argue. I just said, you did that on your own. She hung up. After that, she went silent. No more emails. No more updates. No more bragging rights at the dinner table. At the next family gathering, she didn't even attend. My mom brought Lila a bouquet of sunflowers and said, "You're the reason I stopped clapping for the wrong things." But that's not the best part. The best part came 3 months later. Lila stood on stage again. This time, not in a gallery, but at a local arts award night. She'd been asked to read one of her stories, the one about the jellyfish who made underwater fireworks no one noticed. She stood behind the podium, hands steady, and she said, "This story is for anyone who ever felt like the quiet one. Because sometimes, the quiet ones are just waiting for the world to slow down enough to hear them." She got a standing ovation. As the applause swelled, I scanned the crowd. Candace wasn't there, but Marion was. So was Nate, and my mom. In a room full of people who weren't clapping for prestige, or test scores, or curated perfection. They were clapping for a kid who had once been cut off mid-sentence at her own birthday party. And now, she was finishing the story on her own terms. After the ceremony, as we walked to the car under a sky full of stars, Lila tugged on my sleeve. "Daddy, yeah. Did I sound okay?" I knelt down, looked her in the eyes, and said, "You didn't just sound okay. You reminded the world how to listen." She grinned. Then she slipped her hand into mine. And for the first time in a long, long time, we walked home in a silence that felt nothing like being unheard. It felt like victory. It felt like peace. It felt like magic. Because sometimes, the best revenge is being unforgettable.